So, who are these banjo lessons for? Well, the easy answer to that is everyone. Anyone who's interested can come to this YouTube channel and get a bunch of free information about bluegrass banjo because it's an amazing art form that has taught me so much, and I think it can do the same for anyone that's interested. But when I think about what I've actually done to make it clear that these lessons and the banjo and bluegrass are for everyone, the truth is I've done very little. I'd like to think that I'm a pretty nice guy, and I definitely don't go out of my way to antagonize anyone or make it more difficult for anyone to live their lives freely, but it's kind of an empty sentiment if I don't make it abundantly clear that I'm aiming to be as welcoming and inclusive as possible in a community that historically has not been welcoming and inclusive. I actually wrote another version of this script, which includes some examples of bluegrass musicians, past and present, that have exhibited some exclusionary and even hateful behavior, and how that can dissuade women and people of color and members of the LGBTQ+ community from participating in bluegrass. But I'm not making this video to convince you that the banjo and the bluegrass has an inclusion problem. That's another video for another time. I'm really just making this video to convince you that those kind of beliefs and that behavior has no place on this YouTube channel or in my professional life as a banjo player in the bluegrass community. The truth is, all aspects of American culture are colored by a history of racist, sexist, and homophobic beliefs and behaviors and government policy. And that might not be what you believe or how you behave, and things are changing for the better, but we've still got a long way to go. And because of that, I think it's productive to say proactively what beliefs you do and don't associate with. But first I want to tell you what prompted me to make this video in the first place. About a week ago, I received an anonymous message from someone who said that they could no longer support me because I support the person that abused them. And I don't know who sent me this message, and I don't know who they're talking about. Maybe it's someone that I included in one of my videos, or maybe it's someone I know personally. Maybe it's a close friend. I'm not sure. I do know for sure that I've never been in a situation where I've actively defended or supported anyone who was accused of this sort of thing, so I'm a little bit in the dark about all of this. But that's kind of not the point. The point is that there's someone out there that's under the impression that I support their abuser, and whether or not I've done something indirectly or directly to cause this, or even if this person is mistaken, it's clear to me that I've failed to make it clear what I stand for, even if the things that I stand for aren't necessarily always something that needs to be talked about when I'm talking about Earl Scruggs or J.D. Crowe. It's stuff that is worth talking about. I remember how hard it was to learn to play bluegrass banjo, and I remember how much I appreciate the people that helped me. And because of that, I try to give away as much of this information as I possibly can. That's really important to me, that there are as few barriers between people and bluegrass banjo as possible. It can really be any type of music. It's just that this is the music that I care about. So if somebody else cares about it, I want them to have it. And when I do charge for this material, it's between $1 and $5, probably undercharging. But again, I really just want people to have this information because I love bluegrass banjo. I think other people might like it too. And the more people who are exposed to it, the longer it'll exist. This music isn't going to exist forever, but I'd like to be able to play it as long as I can. So if this is important to me, that anyone should have access to this material and this music, and if $5 is my limit for how much I'm willing to charge for this material, then I know for sure that it's too high a price to pay if you have to face the person that you believe supports your abuser just to learn how to play bluegrass banjo. So before I say anything else, I'd just like to say to the person who sent me this message, I'm sorry. I'm not sure who you are, and I'm not sure who you're referring to, but it sounds like I played a role in your re-victimization, and for that, I'm sorry. And I'd like to know how I did that and what I can do to prevent that from happening in the future. And part of what I think I can do to prevent that in the future is make it clear what I believe in and what I stand for. So here's what I'd like to say to anyone who's apprehensive about participating in the banjo or the bluegrass community or learning from me on YouTube here. I want to recognize that the history of bluegrass is full of problematic beliefs and behaviors, some of which persist today. One issue, which is almost never discussed in the bluegrass community, is sexual assault. And in this time when the Me Too movement has brought justice to victims of abuse throughout our culture and throughout many parts of the entertainment industry, the bluegrass community and the bluegrass industry has been largely silent. It's currently not safe for a victim to call out a member of the bluegrass community for inappropriate behavior, especially if that person has an interest in pursuing bluegrass professionally, especially if the person they're accusing is a prominent member of the bluegrass community. And as it turns out, the stories I've heard, stories which have been told privately among friends for fear of professional and social retribution, do include prominent members of the bluegrass community. And beyond the fact that people don't feel safe to speak out, what you might call the bluegrass news media, publications like Bluegrass Unlimited or websites like Bluegrass Today, don't report on serious issues and would be unlikely to report about this if it was actually brought up. And for what it's worth, if all of this seems like it's coming out of left field, I understand. But when a community is silent and encourages silence, then when someone speaks out, it can often sound ridiculous. That's actually part of the reason it's hard to speak up. So to all of this, I'd like to say that I support and believe victims. And I hope that as a community, we can find a way to allow victims to feel safe to speak out. And when they do speak out, I hope we can be compassionate enough to listen. And beyond that specific issue, I also think it's important that I say that I am in favor of proactively including people in bluegrass that have historically not been included. And part of that is including people today, people that want to participate but don't necessarily feel welcome or safe. And another part of that is including people from the past whose names have not been recorded or whose names have been forgotten. And I think this because if this music really is for everyone, then I think we should let them know. And I think we should let them know that their presence in this music matters to us and is important. So I'd also like to say that if the bluegrass community or the banjo community hasn't felt welcoming to you, or maybe you don't feel like you fit in, or maybe you don't feel safe, I'm glad you're here, and the community is better off with you a part of it. And luckily, I'm not the only person that thinks this. There's actually a couple of organizations dedicated to the promotion of inclusion in bluegrass music. For instance, there's Bluegrass Pride, which promotes the inclusion of LGBTQ+ individuals, and there's the Handsome Ladies, which promotes the inclusion of women in bluegrass. There's also the Arnold Schultz Fund, which promotes the inclusion of people of color in bluegrass, and there's the Black Banjo Reclamation Project, which seeks to reconnect Black people with the banjo, which over the period of a couple hundred years was appropriated into a mostly white played instrument. I currently donate my YouTube revenue to all of these organizations, and I'm going to leave some links in the description of this video if you're interested in donating or learning more. So this is obviously not where the conversation ends. This is really just my way of saying that this is the conversation that I'm having with myself and with other people, and which side of that conversation I'm on. And I know that some people don't want to have this conversation. They just want to play the banjo. They just want me to play the banjo. Sometimes people don't want me to have this conversation either. And I get that, but that's pretty much what my life is. I sit in this room and I play the banjo and I make YouTube videos. And that's great. Honestly, that's my best case scenario. But I just want to make sure that I'm not getting in the way of someone else's best case scenario. And if it's possible, and if they need it, maybe I can help them find their best case scenario. So we'll see. I'll keep trying. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.